And welcome back, everybody. Casey on Tap, Season 3, Episode 2, fires right now. Today is Friday, August the 7th of the year 2026. Thanks so much for being here. My name is Casey, and this is what's on tap, relationships and alcohol today. It's a good one. You don't want to miss it. But first, a quick reminder, what we touched on last week regarding this platform. Okay, we're stepping up the conversations, we're asking better questions, and we're going after the things people feel every day, but almost never say out loud. This season, we're doing a little more than talking, right? We built something very real. We're launching a very real, tangible, one-on-one coaching platform, just me and you. It's called the Casey Code. It did not come from somebody handing me a business plan saying, you know what the internet needs is just another guy with a ring light and a 7-step system. No. This came authentically through you, the audience. Over the years, but especially recently, I continue to receive the DMs, the messages, the texts, the emails, the face-to-face, hey, can I talk to you? From people asking some version of the same question. Casey, I don't know if I have a serious drinking problem, but I know it's becoming some sort of problem for me. And can you help? These are what I call the yellow light drinkers or the middle lane drinkers. They're not standing in the middle of a 5-alarm crisis. They have careers, families, homes, responsibilities, reputations. From the outside, everything looks fine. But on the inside, there's a warning light that's come on. No big deal, okay? They're drinking a little more than they intended. They're thinking about it a little bit more than they want to. They're kind of making rules as they keep renegotiating with themselves. They're losing a little bit of the mornings. They're losing a little bit of energy, the confidence. They're becoming less present in their relationships, okay? Perhaps the most important part, they just don't feel like they have a safe place to ask these questions or to tell these stories. They may not need a hospital. They may not identify with a traditional recovery room. They may not even know what label applies, and frankly, who cares what the label is? They simply need a private, judgment-free place, confidential place to tell and just talk it out loud with somebody, and that's where I come in. You know, they want to say, here's what's happening. Here's what I'm afraid of. Here's what alcohol's costing me. And here's the life I believe may be waiting for me without it. And the Casey Code will give the people that place. It already has, but now it's going to be more specific, more efficient. Real one-on-one conversation, clear boundaries, honest accountability, and a specific, tangible game plan that they can follow into a new alcohol-free life built around their power, their joy, their passion, discipline, and freedom. Not just try harder, not just drink less and see what happens. A code, a decision, a plan for the obstacles, a response for the moments when the old negotiations begin, and concrete actions for the first 72 hours of a different life. We'll talk much more about this and how the Casey Code works very, very soon and how you can sign up, become a part of it. But for now, I just wanted you to understand again why it exists, because there are countless people living out there as yellow light drinkers, quietly wondering whether they need to wait a little longer. But you don't. It doesn't have to turn red. Okay. You can always go the other direction. You don't need to destroy your life. You don't need to have anybody's permission to reclaim it. It's yours and yours alone. I'm just a guy who gave up drinking over 10 years ago. As a matter of fact, 10 years in 7 months exactly next week. I'm just rooting this program, in my experience, in my understanding, in being able to hold up a mirror to say, hey, this is what we're looking at, all right? Which brings me to today's episode. In the past, as a lot of you know, one of our most popular segments has always been the Casey on Tap mailbag. And historically, the mailbag is a circus. Let's just be honest. Funny questions, ridiculous questions, sexual questions, bad dates, bad decisions, etc., right? Messages that begin with hypothetically or asking for a friend. And I love the questions as much as anybody. Trust me, they're not going anywhere. But while I was away, while I was grieving the loss of Clubber, these messages obviously backed up. When I finally began going through them here the last few weeks, to a month, there were a lot, not just from people asking about drinking itself or some funny perspective on their dating life. There was a lot from people asking for my perspective on real pain inside of real relationships where alcohol was involved. Okay. People who loved someone they could no longer reach. People who felt themselves becoming desperate for reassurance. People whose partners seemed to shut down or detached or disappeared whenever the conversation became emotional or, it felt like conflict of some sort. People wondering whether alcohol was causing the distance or simply making a painful pattern much worse. Okay. Instead of turning those messages into, a mailbag segment, I wanted to launch here. I wanted to launch this season, the first real podcast. I want to take this very seriously and give my overall opinion on the matter. Again, having an expertise in heavy drinking and relationships, etc., or failed relationships, if you will. Not because I'm a therapist. I'm not. Okay, I'm not a therapist and I'm not a doctor. Not because this one podcast is going to solve everybody's problems. Of course, that's not. Because there was a clear pattern in these stories. And I truly hope an honest perspective on that pattern. I'm going to give you my perspective and how it affects me and it's affected me. Okay, so you can see it on me in hopes of helping you, as many of you as possible. I've had several sessions personally with a professional just recently about this subject. And believe me, I wish more than anything, I would have been more familiar with and applied the information that I'm about to share with you a long time ago. But I sincerely hope it helps you now, okay? So today we're going directly into one of the most confusing, exhausting, and emotionally expensive places a human being can find themselves in, trying to love someone who disappears every time the relationship becomes real, okay? We're talking personal relationships, attachment styles, the anxious-avoidant trap, and what happens when alcohol gets dropped right in the middle of it. Because apparently relationships weren't already complicated enough, right? I mean, we needed childhood wiring, conflicting nervous systems, text message interpretation, tequila, and two people arguing over the meaning of the word fine through a text. Fantastic, okay? But I digress. I was being lighthearted. First, I want to make the mission very clear here. It's just very important because ultimately I always have multiple people, every podcast, tell me they think I'm talking about them specifically. And there's way too many listeners for that, but this is not for the spectators. I do not want you listening to this show while building a legal case against your current partner. For example, Casey just described you perfectly. Start at minute 12. No, please don't do that. You start at minute 0, okay? We're looking into the mirror. We're not pointing the finger and accusing anybody of anything. This is just a reflection in hopes of helping everybody. So if you hear yourself in today's episode, please, and it gets stingy, please stay with me. If you hear your partner, okay, don't get ready to attack. Stay curious. Attachment language can help explain a pattern. It should never become a weapon, a diagnosis, or a permission slip to treat people badly. Let's be very clear. So, for example, sorry I vanished for 4 days, I'm an avoidant. That's not emotional insight. That's a hostage note with some vocabulary words on it. An anxious attachment, okay, like me, doesn't give you the right to, get over emotional or want to kind of interrogate or accuse or demand constant access or validation. Okay, that doesn't give you the right. Explanation is useful. Accountability is still required. Now, a quick thank you to our sponsors this season. Element Hydration, without dumping a bag of sugar into your body and calling it wellness. I use it, I love it, and your body may enjoy receiving actual electrolytes after you've spent the weekend treating hydration like an optional subscription service. And Ultra Energy Patches, simple, convenient energy without turning your morning into a chemistry experiment with little shots at the gas station, all right? So thank you to both of them for riding with us this season as we take off. Now, back at it. All right, attachment styles. Here's the simple, high-level understanding. Most modern attachment models give us two basic dimensions. Attachment anxiety asks, how afraid am I that the person I love will reject me, leave me, or stop loving me? Attachment avoidance asks, how uncomfortable am I depending on someone or being vulnerable or allowing real emotional closeness? Picture those two lines crossing. That's the vast majority of examples I have here, and that's why they call it the trap, right? One measuring anxiety and one measuring avoidance. Where somebody generally lands creates 4 familiar quadrants, or the 4 attachment styles. First, the secure attachment, which we all want to get to. Low anxiety, low avoidance. Second is the anxious preoccupied attachment. That's where I fall, mostly would fall right in that box. High anxiety, low avoidance, they want closeness, they fear losing it. They can become highly sensitive to changes in tone, communication, affection. When a relationship feels uncertain, they may seek reassurance. They overthink, they pursue, protest, or they want to resolve everything immediately. They want to make sure everything's okay. Okay. And the third and fourth are both avoidance. Okay. One's dismissive, one's fearful, but they're both avoidance. And they've learned independence early on in self-reliance. They may minimize their need for connection. They suppress vulnerable emotions, detach during conflict, or pull away when another person's needs begin to feel like pressure. So you can see how the anxious and the avoidant, you can see how that is going to be a problem right from the jump. But most people they're not aware of this. I certainly wasn't. So look, these four styles are not tattoos or brands or labels or permanent personality boxes, okay? It's just a guide. They're patterns, general ways that our minds and bodies learned to handle closeness, vulnerability, separation, and threats when we were children. It's how we learned it. Subconscious, our nervous systems, okay? Early relationships can help shape them. Later relationships can reinforce them or help change them. So this is the map. It's not a life sentence. And today, we're concentrating on one of the most recognizable and heavily discussed pairings. All you have to do is search it. The anxious person with the dismissive avoidant. A dynamic so familiar that it's commonly called the anxious-avoidant trap. This is a descriptive phrase, not a clinical diagnosis. But if you've lived it, the word trap can feel painfully accurate. Here's how it works in general. When the relationship feels threatened, an anxiously attached person wants to move toward the problem. Please talk to me. Please tell me what's wrong. Why are you quiet? Are we okay? Do you still love me? Can we please resolve this now? Their nervous system, they can't control that. Your nervous system takes over, okay? It says to them, I feel this love pulling away, and I need to restore the connection. An avoidantly attached person often moves away from the conflict, saying to themselves, I need space. This is too much. I don't want to talk about it. Can we please just avoid this? Their nervous system is saying, I feel pressure closing in. So all my life, I have distanced myself to feel safe again. One's reaching, the other's retreating. The reaching, even though the person doing it, it feels okay and it feels like something they would want. The reaching makes the retreating feel trapped. The retreating makes the reaching feel abandoned. So the anxious partner reaches harder. The avoidant partner reaches farther. Okay, is this sounding familiar? I mean, again, just the pattern of it, it's very, very powerful if you just look at it. Each person then uses the other person's reaction as what? As proof that they were right all along. Okay, see, you never leave me alone. Or see, you always leave. This is the anxious-avoidant trap. It can feel like one person is chasing the relationship while the other one is escaping the relationship. But underneath the behavior, we have human beings, both people, trying to protect themselves from pain. Okay? Simply protecting themselves in opposite directions. The anxious partner may amplify emotion to pull the connection closer. The avoidant partner may suppress the emotion to push the emotion or what they perceive as a threat or pressure farther away. Neither strategy necessarily tells you how much the other person cares, which they do. Okay, your spouse or your boyfriend or whatever's going on, if you recognize this, they care so much. They're not the villain. They're not evil. You're not. Take this. Understand this. Okay. Avoidants aren't bad people. Anxious aren't bad. Just how they are. And until you understand this, the most important language, the language of love and connection, one person's speaking Dutch and the other person's speaking Japanese, and they're getting angry and frustrated as to why they can't understand each other. An avoidant person can care deeply and still go emotionally dark. An anxious person can love deeply while it still looks like they're being overwhelming. The issue is not who feels more. The issue is what each person does with what they feel. Now, let us pour alcohol into this system because alcohol does not enter anything as a neutral guest. It changes the volume. It changes atmosphere. And when it comes to suppressing emotions, the thing about it is we can't pick and choose which ones. So we never know how alcohol is going to disrupt everything. There are examples where both people drink, which is, most examples. And there's other examples where one person drinks and the other one doesn't. It doesn't matter. For the anxious person, alcohol may turn worry into what? Accusation. It turns fear into urgency. They already struggle to sit with the uncertainty. Alcohol can remove the brakes, man. Now that call has to happen tonight, over and over and over. The answer has to come right now. The silence must mean something terrible. The fear that might have been questioned sober becomes absolute truth after 4 drinks. For the avoidant person, alcohol can become something totally different. An escape hatch. If you already survive discomfort by minimizing and compartmentalizing and suppressing, because that's what you've had to do your whole life, drinking can become suppression on top of suppression. They don't have to name the feeling. They don't have to tolerate the vulnerability. Avoidants don't have to explain, they don't have to explain why they're distant when they're drinking. You don't have to sit across from someone who's asking you to be emotionally present. They can drink, they can soften the internal pressure, they can change the subject, become charming, become mean, become numb, fall asleep, make the entire problem about how dramatic the other person is. But suppressed is not the same as resolved. Numb is not the same as safe. Quiet is not the same as peaceful. I don't want to talk about it does not mean there's nothing to talk. This is where drinking becomes so dangerous inside the anxious-avoidant relationship. The anxious partner chases clarity. The avoidant partner chases distance. Alcohol can make both people better at their worst instinct. One becomes louder. The other becomes less reachable. One says, "Tell me how you feel." The other says, "I don't know what you want me to say." Pushes because distance feels like rejection. The other shuts down because pressure feels like control. Alcohol distorts the tone, the memory, the judgment, and restraint. Suddenly, they're no longer trying to understand each other. They're trying to survive each other. The next morning, who knows? The argument could be technically over and nothing is repaired. Maybe there's an apology. Maybe there's sex. Maybe breakfast. Maybe they agree to let it go. But letting something go and resolving it are not the same thing, okay? Sometimes letting it go just means both people have agreed to bury it in the same shallow grave. And shallow graves do not stay quiet for long. So things are good again. And then very shortly later, the cycle begins again because nothing was resolved. Then tension, then distance, then pursuit, then the drinking, and then the disappearance, and then no repair, and repeat. Now I'm describing that moment of uncertainty or conflict. Okay, this is wrapped around years of good. Okay, this could happen once every year for 10 years, but because nothing's resolved, each time it pops up, it almost feels more intense. Like the other things keep getting brought up. Okay, that's what I'm describing. I'm trying to help by describing the pattern that maybe you weren't seeing and how understanding each other's attachment style truly can help, okay? Eventually, both of you start saying the same tragic sentence. And this is what we're trying to avoid. This is just how our relationship is. No. There's real love there. Okay? You know when there's real love there. This is how your pattern is. Patterns can change, but only after both people are aware of it and then stop defending their favorite form of protection. The anxious person has to learn that more pursuit does not create more connection there, that space is safe. It doesn't mean full abandonment. The avoidant person has to learn more distance does not create emotional safety for both, but it creates safety for one person by handing the entire emotional burden to the other without really knowing it. Both people have to learn that alcohol cannot do emotional labor. Alcohol doesn't communicate. Alcohol doesn't reassure. Alcohol doesn't create trust. It does not repair intimacy. It postpones all 4, and it charges massive interest. Now, let me stop here because the internet loves attachment styles, okay? For one major reason. They allow everybody to become a psychologist without the inconvenience of graduate school. Your boyfriend takes 3 hours to text back, he's an avoidant. Your girlfriend wants to know where you were, she's anxious. Somebody enjoys one evening alone, they're emotionally unavailable, narcissistic, dismissive avoidant with a moon in Capricorn, okay? Settle down, please. Settle down. Attachment is better understood as patterns of anxiety and avoidance, not permanent boxes stamped onto foreheads. People can behave differently. Sometimes your alarm is overly sensitive. Sometimes there's actually smoke. Don't confuse attachment language with evidence that every concern is imaginary or that you're absolutely right about everything. Do not confuse emotional suppression with emotional strength. That one matters. Some avoidant people appear incredibly calm during conflict. The anxious person visibly upset, asking questions, showing emotion, while the avoidant person sits back and says, look at you, you're out of control. Well, maybe they are. Or maybe one person's distress is visible and the other person's defense is invisible. Stillness can be regulation. It can also be a shutdown. Silence can be thoughtful, but it can also be punishment. Space can be healthy. It can also be abandonment dressed in therapy language. The difference is communication and accountability. For example, healthy space sounds like, I'm overwhelmed. I care about this and I care about you. I need fill in the blank X amount of time to settle down. Hour, a day, several days, whatever. But I'll come back and we can finish this conversation at this point specifically. Avoidant disappearance sounds like, I'm done with this. Then silence, unanswered messages, those are not the same thing. For the anxious partner, healthy communication sounds like, the distance between us is activating fear for me. I need reassurance, but I don't want to force this conversation. Can we agree on when we'll come back to it? Anxious pursuit sounds like 14 messages, 4 calls, and a surprise appearance in front of someone's, house or whatever. You simply think that it's out of love and kindness, where it can obviously look completely different to the other person. Security is not never needing anybody. Security is not needing unlimited access to somebody. Security is being able to stay connected to yourself while remaining honestly connected to another person. That requires something alcohol is terrible at producing: clarity. So here's the relationship challenge for this episode and for all the people that wrote in. I hope this has been helpful. The next time you start feeling your pattern, okay? Again, I land pretty safely in the anxious attachment pattern. I'm fearing that it's going to be going away and I need to be reassured. So the next time you feel your pattern, do not immediately obey it. If your reflex is to chase, pause. And I know how hard that is. Just pause. If your reflex is to just disappear, stay present long enough to communicate. If your reflex is to pour a drink, before you do, ask yourself, what are you trying not to feel? Not what are you trying not to think about? What are you trying not to feel? Is it rejection, shame, fear, powerlessness, guilt, possibility that the relationship's ending, possibility that the relationship needs more from you than you know how to give? All I'm asking you to do is name it before you numb it. Because once you can name the feeling, then you've got options. As long as the feeling remains a faceless emergency, you'll keep reaching for the fastest exit. It's now time, folks, for the Casey on Tap Cavity Check, Relationship Edition. I'll ask the questions. You just answer them privately to yourself, not around anybody. This is just me and you in your mind. Answer these like a little dentist poking on your teeth. Some will be more sensitive than others, okay? Question 1. Recently, have you used alcohol to avoid a conversation you knew needed to happen? Question 2. Did you call your partner too emotional because their feelings made you uncomfortable? Question 3. Have you demanded immediate reassurance from someone who had clearly maybe asked you for a reasonable amount of space? Number 4, did you ask for space without saying when or whether you'd return? Question 5, did drinking make you brave enough to start a conversation at some point but too impaired to have it well? Question 6, have you punished somebody with silence and called it protecting your peace? Question 7, did you read distance as proof that you were unlovable before asking what it actually meant? Number 8, did you blame the entire conflict on alcohol so neither of you had to examine anything while you were sober? Any pattern underneath it? Number 9, have you apologized for something you said but avoid discussing why you keep getting to the place where you say it? And finally, number 10, this one is, I personally think this is really powerful for all relationships out there. If alcohol disappeared just from your relationship for 30 days, what truths would become harder to avoid? What things would become better, clearer, if we were both on the same page of wanting to feel loved and understood and connected just from your relationship? If it was gone for 30 days, what difference would that make? That's your cavity check. It's not a diagnosis. It's not a verdict. Information. And information becomes useful the moment you stop turning it into ammunition. Here's the important part. Neither attachment style makes someone bad. Okay? On the internet, you may see a slant that avoidance. No. Nope, absolutely not. That is not what I'm saying. Neither attachment style excuses harmful behavior. And no relationship becomes secure because one person is doing the work and studied hard enough to carry both nervous systems. You can invite someone to honesty. You can't drag them there. You can create safety. You cannot create willingness. You can own your side of the pattern. You cannot do the other person's work for them. You can help countless people. You cannot carry one. That is true in love. That is true in recovery. And it will be the central core of the Casey Code. As I told you at the beginning of the episode, the Casey Code is the one-on-one coaching platform for people who are ready to take an honest look at their relationships with alcohol, especially the yellow light drinkers whose lives may look successful and they've been successful, but there's some sort of warning light going off and you need to talk about it. The first door into that work will be a one-on-one clarity session, a private conversation about your story, an honest reality check, a clear look at what alcohol is costing you across your health, discipline, relationships, confidence, peace, integrity, and freedom, and a personalized action plan built around your decision, your reasons, your obstacles in your first 72 hours. Clear, personal, structure, time-bound. The goal is not dependence on me. The goal is to help you become someone you trust and to build a life you no longer need to escape from. This is not medical treatment. It's not detox. It's not therapy. And it's not a substitute for qualified mental health care. It will be coaching grounded in my 10 years, 7 months of deep experience when it comes to high-level relationship with alcohol and then a life without it. Personal responsibility, honest accountability, and real decisions. If you drink heavily or regularly enough that withdrawal may be a concern, do not abruptly stop because of this podcast or any podcast. Alcohol withdrawal can be dangerous and even life-threatening. Speak with a qualified medical professional if that's where your current position is. Strength is not pretending you don't need help. Strength is choosing the right help. Whether today's episode made you think about your drinking, your relationship, or both, your assignment is simple. Finish this sentence honestly. When I feel unsafe in love, I tend to blank. Chase, disappear, accuse, perform, control, drink, pretend not to care. Then answer one more. The next secure thing I can do is not the perfect thing, not the thing that guarantees the relationship survives, the secure thing. Tell the truth, set the boundary, keep the promise, stay sober for the conversation, ask for space responsively, give space without abandoning yourself. Stop chasing someone who has repeatedly shown you no willingness to turn around, or stop running from someone who is asking for the basic emotional presence of a real relationship and what that requires. One honest question, one secure decision, one action that proves you mean it. That is how the pattern changes. Okay? Hopefully that was helpful. Season 3 is off and running. We are going straight to the conversations that matter. Send the questions, send the stories. Tell me what you want me to talk about next. Email casey@caseyontap.com or questions@caseyontap.com. Find me at Casey Wandell, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and remember, love cannot grow where truth is constantly being chased out of the room. You cannot drink your way into emotional availability. You cannot pursue somebody into intimacy. You cannot build a secure relationship by repeatedly abandoning yourself or each other. My name's Casey Wandell. This is Casey on Tap. Every moment is a chance to turn it all around. I got nothing but love and faith in every single one of you. Until next time, let's go. See you soon.